Radio for readers, Bookmark.
This is Bookmark. I'm Marc Bernier. The nation's top authors are coming up next. This has been one I've been looking forward to for weeks since this book arrived at my house. Congressman James Clyburn is with us from South Carolina, here to talk about his book, Blessed Experiences. It's good to see you, Congressman.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, one of the things that I first read in your book, when I just opened it, I came to the page where you make a decision that you're walking around the Capitol in South Carolina, and you're like, there's no black faces on the walls here.
Oh, yeah.
And so you came up with, after much thought, Mary McLeod Bethune, who's from our neck of the woods in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Absolutely.
I didn't know this until I read the book, just what a fight that was to get her image up.
Oh, it was an incredible fight. A legislator from Spartanburg, South Carolina, really brought up all of the stuff about Mrs. Bethune and her involvements. And if you recall, back in those days, anytime you spoke up or spoke out, you were considered to be communist and or under communist influence. And this guy took the floor and just raised Cain, frightened a bunch of people off. But Governor West, to his credit, refused to back down, and we got it done. And her portrait is there in the State House today, becoming the first person of color to have that honor.
What do you like to credit, or if you were somebody asking, they meet you for the first time, before you go to Congress, what do you like to think is your best work in South Carolina?
Well, before I got into Congress, I think it was my work on the staff of John West, because John West had committed himself to a colorblind administration, and I was his first hire of color. And he took a lot of flack because of me, but he stuck with me through it all. And I think that we got a lot done together. We created a state agency to deal with issues that no southern state had ever bothered to deal with before, and a lot of non-southern states had not done it. And John West thought that this should be done, and he did it. And then he named me to head it after it fell on some hard times. I had gone off to law school, and I came back to take over that agency, and we became fast friends. And I ended up running that agency for 4 governors, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and we all held fast. I wish we had those guys today.
Yeah, more than 20 years now on Capitol Hill. Did you ever think you'd become the 3rd most powerful member of Congress?
No, never thought. Never even dreamed that. My whole dream was to get to Congress. And I don't know what I thought would happen, but I became co-president of my freshman class, which was, at that time, the largest freshman class since World War II. And then 6 years later, I was unanimously elected chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And then 3 years after that, I was elected vice chair of the House Democrats, and then chair. And I became majority whip, and I'm now the assistant leader. I consider myself very blessed.
Washington has changed a lot, Congressman, since you first came in. It's gone back and forth. Is it going to be harder now with more Republican control for your vision to carry forth, despite your position, knowing you're in the minority?
Yes, it will be. But, you know, I had pretty good success in the minority. Some of my best legislation I got passed because, you know, as I say in the book, it's something I picked up from a biography of a gentleman who once wrote, "There's no limit to what one could get accomplished if you don't get hung up on who gets the credit." And so the South Carolina National Heritage Card was my legislation, but I gave it to Lindsey Graham to put his name on it. When I couldn't get the Gullah Geechee Heritage Card, which incidentally runs from Florida up to North Carolina, I went to Orrin Hatch of Utah and got it done. So I'm not going to worry about whether or not I get credit for it. What I'm going to try to do is get certain things done. And I've already started on targeted funding for communities in need. It's something I call the 10-20-30 formula, and I've written a piece that was published by the Harvard Law Review. And I think that Republicans are beginning to take a look at that as a way to fund agencies going forward and to fund communities. So I think that we'll get something done. It won't be as much as I would want. It won't be as bold as I would like. But incrementally, I think we'll get something done.
Yeah, I've talked to some people on Capitol Hill, and they say James Clyburn is the master tactician. He can see the field from far away and knows where to go, which is why you've had so much respect on both sides of the Hill. Your thoughts? The next Attorney General, what do you think? I think she sails right through. What do you think?
If they ever put her name up, she does.
Would there be a reason why they wouldn't?
There's no reason why they shouldn't, but one reason why they wouldn't is because they don't want Barack Obama to have any kind of achievement, much less success. This is a remarkable woman who I don't know personally, but her brother and sister-in-law teach at a college in my hometown of Sumter, where I grew up. And her another brother at one time pastored in South Carolina and now in Charlotte. So I know them. I'd never known her, but she's just a remarkable woman.
Once she got through this whole screening for federal judge, I figured there's no chance she's not going to get to be Attorney General, because I was told that the rigors of going through that, you get through that, you should be able to sail into if you're asked to be Attorney General.
Yeah. Well, now, she was a U.S. attorney.
U.S. Attorney.
U.S. attorney twice.
Twice.
So she's been through it under two administrations. There is no reason except pure Obama politics.
Because Republicans would embarrass themselves if they rejected her now. That's what I've read. They would embarrass themselves.
Well, only if we call them to the carpet for it. The problem we've had on my side of the aisle is that we basically don't have the stomach to go out and really raise the level of these rejections and objections the way we should. We just won't do it. I hope that the drubbing we got on November 4th will push us in that direction.
Who becomes the future for the party now after what you've just gone through? Who are the young Turks that are going to come up and grab the party and lead them? Who do you like?
There are a lot of them. Ben Ray Lujan that we just is coming into the leadership. Donna Edwards of Maryland is coming into the leadership. Deborah Wasserman Schultz here in Florida is already in the leadership. There are a lot of Cedric Richmond, a young man from Louisiana. There are a lot of young people. We have a tremendous blending of old and new. I tell people all the time, as my dad used to tell me, experience is the best teacher. So if we can get a good blend of energy and experience, I believe we'll lay the foundation for significant successes going forward.
I was talking with a mutual friend in Washington a few months ago, and we were talking about how hard you've worked to get jobs for South Carolinians.
Yeah.
Yet the rules regarding labor and unions sometimes prohibit other companies from coming into the state. Congressman, how do you square that with the people in your district who desperately want jobs?
Sure. Well, I think that what we have to do is really take each county. Here's the problem in South Carolina, and it may have been in other southern states as well. When I was in the governor's office, I ran across a memorandum that had been written to the governor, that wasn't John West, the governor before him, advising the development board that we had in those days, is now the Commerce Department, on where to locate industry. And one of the things they had in that memorandum was to steer industrial possibilities or prospects away from 10 specific counties. And when you read the list of the counties, you saw that these were the 10 counties in South Carolina that were majority black counties. And so what has happened has been done deliberately. And so what we have to do is come to the realization that all that stuff needs to be put behind us. We just had 2 weeks ago in South Carolina, the Supreme Court hand down the decision in the school funding case that had been sitting on for 21 years. That case was filed 21 years ago, and finally the Supreme Court decided that to muster up whatever it takes to render a 3-2 decision saying the way we fund schools in South Carolina is unfair and discriminatory. So the problem we've had is that we refuse to admit to the unfairness of so many of the policies that we've put in place. We say it's because labor unions are not of any significant benefit. We all know that labor unions, but for labor unions, when would we have gotten rid of child?
Right. But was that more, Congressman, at the time of John L. Lewis than it is today? People have a chance to earn more. Even African Americans have many more opportunities now than they ever have. Do we still need unions to prop up wages?
Well, I would ask this question. Do business people need the Chamber of Commerce? Okay. So I think that all of us, there's nothing wrong with people of like minds, similar experiences, coming together in association, whatever you may call it, to advocate on behalf of the whole. Business people do it, and they call it the Chamber of Commerce, and I don't see anybody complaining about that.
I want to ask you about the president's recent statement on the immigration policy,
Sure.
how it changes. Are you okay with this?
I am absolutely okay with that.
Really?
Absolutely. I think that the president should have used the executive order much more often a long time ago.
Help me understand this, Congressman, because 3 years ago he said it wasn't the way to handle it.
Well, that's what he said, and I argued with him at that time that that was the way to handle it. Look, Abraham Lincoln used the executive order. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order. Congress didn't free the slaves. Abraham Lincoln did it with the executive order. Now, the whole movie Lincoln was all about getting the 13th Amendment passed because the president knew that when the war ended or he was out of office, that the slaves were subject to going back into slavery, unless you put it in the Constitution. Truman integrated the armed services by executive order. And you've had Bush, you've had Reagan, all doing immigration reform by executive order. And it was fine for them, but all of a sudden it's not okay for Obama.
Touche. Let me ask you about health care. You had a big hand in this. Where does this go now with the new Congress and Senate? Are you worried that it will be undermined?
Yes, I am. I've always been worried about that. But I don't fear their attempts. Let them do it. Let them attempt to get rid of it. I think it will ignite the kind of debate that we need to have. I was very upset when we did not stay on the field back in 2010. We got the law passed, and we went on to other things. When you do big things like that, you have to plan for it to be done incrementally. Remember, when we did the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we had to get rid of voting and housing and all that kind of stuff to pass the law. We got voting a year after the Civil Rights Act passed, and we got fair housing 4 years later in 1968. And we didn't apply the what we call the equal employment part of the Civil Rights Act to the public sector until 1972. These things are always done incrementally.
Okay.
Now, when people talk about the Civil Rights Act, they act as if it was just one bill. It's all done incrementally. So I think that the answer to the health care or health reform issue is the public option. And we were not going to get there in one fell swoop. But I think we can get there incrementally. So let's have the debate and let the public chime in to tell us how they think we ought to go.
Finally, the way the economy is going, are you okay with the speed of the recovery, or would you like to see something else happen?
I'd like to see some other things happen because the recovery is fine for the investor class. Look at what's happening at Wall Street. When the president came in, what was 7,000, and it's now approaching 18,000. That's the Dow. So the people who are pretty wealthy in the country are doing well. Jessica Yellen told us in her most recent speech that the thing that she fears most is the fact that the upper 5% in this country has seen over the last 25 years an increase in their wealth of 38%, and the other 95% an increase in their wealth of only 10%. So that gap in equality, economic equality, is absolutely something that must come to an end.
Finally, in this book, you write a lot about civil rights and Dr. King, and you put yourself through school, came from humble beginnings, went to law school, became successful in practicing law. You get elected to your house. You're in Congress, third highest ranking member. I don't think you benefited from affirmative action, did you?
Absolutely, I did.
You did?
Absolutely.
The reason I asked this, I thought you did it all on your own, because my question was going to be, at what point will we as a country be where we don't need affirmative action programs to even the scales? Black Americans in this country, Congressman, have far more opportunities than when you even began your career. Do we still need it?
Yes, we do.
Why?
Well, because all you got to do is look at this income inequality I just talked about.
Yes.
That doesn't happen just, as we said down where I'm from, just dry along so. It happens because we just saw laws passed that we call voter ID laws. Nobody believes that's about IDing voters. People always ID themselves when they go to vote. We've seen this so-called Citizens United case. The Supreme Court just ruled unlimited amount of money going into campaigns and can be secret. And when you equate money with speech, that means the more money you have, the more speech you have. So there's always going to be a need for governmental intervention. Now, just so you know, I went to law school, but I never practiced law. I always believe that people ought to be given governmental protection. We protect business people. We pass laws to protect business people from certain practices. It's kind of interesting. If you take a look at the bill that just passed the House, that we call the so-called pipeline, the XM pipeline, we put a little clause in there. I voted against it, but the clause was put into that bill to protect business people from lawsuits if something were to rupture on that line. We all say let the
XL pipeline proceed.
Yeah, but why you put that in there?
It took the liability out?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
See, people don't look at all this stuff and they say, why did you vote against that? Well, that's one of the reasons. Of course, I'm against that part of it, but I'm for the pipeline.
It's great to meet you. After all these years, Congressman James Clyburn, the book is called Blessed Experiences. It is on sale everywhere. Our guest today on WNDB. Congressman, great seeing you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That's Bookmark for this week. If you have comments or thoughts on future authors, send an email to us at our website, bookmark.us. That's our broadcast for today. Thanks for watching.